This essay example, as well as thousands of others, is available in text format on our website for free and without registration. Simply Google Ivy Panda Free Essays.
The United Nations is an international organization that unites world countries to ensure peace and human rights. Even though it was formed after the Second World War, its peacekeeping efforts have been somewhat limited, as has been proven by a significant number of wars, civil uprisings, and terrorist acts all over the world. The United Nations was formed with the great and honorable purpose of keeping peace on the planet. Superpowers have found it their duty and immediate obligation to join the joint efforts in stopping violence and human rights violations. One of the significant points present in the rules of the United Nations is that it will, first of all, seek a solution by negotiation, inquiry, mediation, conciliation, arbitration, judicial settlement, resort to regional agencies or arrangement, or other peaceful means of their own choice. The interesting fact is that the United Nations admits using force in some instances if necessity demands violence. Not all conflicts can be resolved peacefully, but if the United Nations' primary duty is to ensure peace is kept globally, then actions must be taken. The nations that are involved in the organizations have enough political and manpower to unite in the withdrawal of all weapons. It seems pointless for United Nations forces to make their presence visible in a country where open military violence occurs. One of the United Nations goals is to not interfere and get involved in any violence, but it is able to stay a neutral observer while people, just steps away, are firing at each other. If the organization presents itself as a world peacemaker, then why are some countries not allowed to join? It has proved to be impossible to reach an agreement on new permanent members, but how can anything be done if the United Nations calls something impossible? If this cannot be achieved, then what is possible? If the world leaders, with their superior intellect, cannot agree and find a way to make it possible, how can the regular public be expected to keep peace? The fact is that no matter how high and morally correct the United Nations goals might be, it is still bound by rules and politics that cannot allow certain things. The limitations that exist clearly illustrate the human nature of the organization. It is not a secret that there were and still are a number of missions that have failed on many levels. One out of a number of examples is the crisis that took place in Rwanda. Not only the United Nations forces were killed and injured, but the resolution was not achieved to any degree. It seems strange that genocide, civil wars, and rebellions against governments are taking place, and the peacekeeping organization cannot achieve any cessation of violence. The rules and policies produced by the United Nations are not centered on global involvement in de-weaponizing countries, as everyone is full of fear that a group of terrorists will be able to overtake an unarmed country. But if this is the case, governments should work on devices that partially paralyze the enemy without significant harm to a person's health. There is no doubt that there are more people in the world who want peace, and so if the United Nations allowed everyone wanting to stop violence to join, people could be given designated authority to make sure peace is kept in their community. The decentralization of government would ensure that local authorities take control of any violent outbreaks. The function of the United Nations is representative of the want of people to reach world peace. It is a very respectable cause, and a lot has been accomplished, but the amount of countries and people participating in peacekeeping is too tiny compared to those who upset the order. More countries must be allowed to join to unite the efforts in fighting violence and preventing wars. This essay on United Nations and world peace was written and submitted by a student just like you. The Ivy Panda Samples database hosts thousands of works similar to this one on various subjects. Visit ivypanda.com to find what you are looking for, free of charge.